Hi, everyone, and welcome to China EVs and More, where my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discussed today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. We ask that you help us get the word out about this podcast to other enthusiasts and tune in again next week. Slam those subscribe and like buttons, please, to get us into more homes and computers. My name is Tu Lee. I am the managing director at China Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which, of course, I encourage you all to do. A normal week, Lei, can you please introduce yourself?
A volleyball tournament coming up weekend. Dad, Lei.
Local, or do you have to travel?
Local. This is your co-host, Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review, and this is episode 234. And big news. Big news with implications. I say this is probably one of the news of the year already, with Canada and China reaching a trade truce, and especially the part on EVs. We'll talk about that. Somebody needs a love. I think we have some awards to give. I definitely know who that somebody needs a love award goes to. The final numbers for 2025 are out, the China Auto EV sales. We can talk a little bit about that and what's been going on in terms of Chinese are coming, right? For looking to buy BYD batteries. Trump saying, let them come in. You predicting 2 episodes ago that we may have a Chinese automaker coming in this year. So lots of things to talk about. Exciting times. And you were about to say something before you come on.
My apologies, everyone. As you all know, I have a Hyundai IONIQ 5, and I really like it. It is fun to drive, but it doesn't have like a soul. It's just very, very efficient, very fun to drive.
That's a statement.
The range
right there.
is lower, lower than I'd like, and I'm about to turn it in. I extended it because, as most of you know, I was going to get a Mach-E. Still likely going to do that with Blue Cruise, but I'm driving it home after picking up my son from a basketball practice, and I get a battery light that comes on. A battery light. A battery light, and then one of the screens flashes something, troubles with your 12-volt, please pull over, please pull over. And I'm about 1.5 miles from my house, and so I pull over for a second because I don't know what's going on. And worst thing, my son's in the car, and I'm thinking, whoa, battery fire, so I better stop. And so I stop for a second, and I'm like, you know what, I'm 1.5 miles home, so I drive it to my house. And it's been sitting in my driveway for 2 days because, and it's not the car battery, it's the car battery.
Yeah, the auxiliary, the 12-volt, right?
Yeah, so which is a bit ironic. And then my dealership, I call the dealership to set up an appointment because it should be under warranty. And then AI picks up, repeats. I say things 4 times, and it repeats and it repeats and it repeats. We can't get you in until February. Would you like to schedule an appointment? And I'm like, what? And so I called the direct line. Oh, we don't have enough master techs, so we can't see the car until next week. And I go, so you want me to drop it off next week? Because it's sitting in my driveway doing absolutely nothing. And effectively, we can't help you. And then I'm like, I'm just going to drop it off and put it in queue, because it's not doing anything in my house. They send a tow truck. It's the wrong kind of tow truck because it's an electric vehicle. So twice now, I've had to wait for tow trucks. Finally got a flatbed. And on top of that, I'm trying to drive to Detroit for the auto show for events. So now there's coordination between my wife and I with the kids' activities. And then on top of that, yesterday was a snow day. So both boys were home. And so it has been a crazy, hectic week.
Yeah.
I had, unluckily, I have to do the show. So my wife is at the dealership now dropping that car off that just got towed out of our driveway. And the car has 11.5 thousand miles on it and the battery died. And not the battery, but the battery. So there you go, Lei. There's my story.
Oh,
and
what a great start.
On top of that, Lei, oh, by the way, I went to the auto show. So anyways,
what auto show?
Let's do this. Let's do this, Lei. Let's talk about this big news. Please detail for the audience what happened effectively this morning, early this morning, late last night.
Yeah, so it was anticipated that this Carney's trip to China, the Canadian Prime Minister, first to visit China since 2017. And it was anticipated that there will be some trade truce involving canola oil or seeds. And as it so happened, the announcement was in exchange for dropping the canola seed tariffs going into China from 84% to 15%, Canada is allowing a capped number, 49,000 vehicles, Chinese imports, EVs specifically, to come into Canada at 6.1%. tariff. So the 100% tariff
so effectively
gone.
Zero.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pat
myself
on the back. I'm gonna stretch my arm a little bit, pat myself on the back. So, anyways,
and so here we go. Right, the floodgates have been opened, and this certainly will rile Trump. I'm sure he's going to tweet out.
You make a great point. I'm going to stop you right there, Lei. You make a great point. Once that door's open, it's never going to close.
Yeah, because this has, the implications on especially Trump saying, let them come in after visiting the Ford factory, right, earlier this week, right before the auto show.
And flipping off a factory worker.
Yeah, and and now Ford is looking to procure batteries from BYD, I think I take it's for their plants outside of the U.S. Is that what?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So in a couple of days, I think the order seems to have changed. And it so happens that it's been 20 years, exactly 20 years, since Geely exhibited in Detroit. And we know our good friend Ash actually asked him about some of the media quotes about Geely, what Geely is saying. Well, he said they're exploring opportunities and will try to make a decision. That's his official word. So the prospects of us as U.S. consumers buying a Chinese EV have not been greater since Geely exhibited in 2006 in Detroit. That's what we're seeing right now. All of a sudden, right?
We're surrounded. You know, Mexico already imports, and they're mostly ICE vehicles from Mexico. So let's be clear with that. Mexico isn't this mass adopting clean energy vehicles. They are shipping PHEVs and some BEVs, but a lot of ICE vehicles from Chery, from SAIC, from some of these other companies. But now Canada, and to create some context, Lei, Canada's sales 2024 were around 2 million, just under 2 million units. So not a huge market. So 49,000 is fairly insignificant, but it's very symbolic. So the actual quantity is not great, but the symbolism is really important because there's a few things going on. It opens the door, first of all, to North America for the Chinese EV makers. Number two, now we wait and see what the reaction is from the Trump administration. Number three, the next step would be manufacturing Canada, wouldn't it?
And it also included the so-called joint venture type of investment. So we're going back to the mid-90s to what happened in China.
Well, and hundreds
China, right?
hundreds of thousands of units of capacity have been pulled out of Canada by the U.S. legacies over the last 6, 9, 12 months. So the Canadians, that's a lot of jobs up and down the supply chain, not just at the assembly factories, but the tier ones and stuff too. And let me assure you, at the auto show yesterday and the day before that, there's not that many tier ones and OEMs that I've spoken with that are like, yeah, we need to get out of Canada and Mexico. There's not anyone that's telling me that in any way. So the Midwestern U.S. automotive sector believes that Mexico and Canada are key partners. And as I alluded to months ago or a couple months ago, they're going to be our biggest competitors now when it comes to the United States is still the second largest passenger vehicle market in the world, and that's nothing to sneeze at. We can throw that weight around a little bit, but we were stronger, in my opinion, with Mexico and Canada. If the USMCA gets renegotiated, this is the USMCA, again, that Trump put in place 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So he blew up his own agreement.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing because this happens as the USMCA discussions are ongoing, I believe, right? And at the same time...
Well, now they're catalyzed.
Yeah.
Now they're catalyzed because, Canada, Carney's like, I'm not waiting. I'm a sitting duck.
So I know there's a question that just popped up. The potential of these EVs coming into Canada and coming into the US, I don't know, because there's still the 100% EV tariffs and the ICV ban. And if Trump says, let them come in, what does that mean? You produce in the US, you sell in the US, you hire US jobs, that those restrictions are gone, right? So many implications. And
here's the weirdest thing. So there was conversations yesterday. There was a panel discussion. I won't name the people who were talking, but let's just say that they weren't very open to China coming to the United States because they were talking about national security issues. We have the leverage right now. We have the leverage. The Biden administration put in, let's be clear about this. The Biden administration put in restrictions already on connected software for model year 27 and connected hardware for model year 30. If we want to be more restrictive as the United States before allowing the Chinese to enter, let's do that. Let's just set the table. I'm sure the Chinese will meet it. You know what I mean? Like we can communicate our concern about national security. They're not here yet. Okay, so we can do whatever we want, be as restrictive as we want, but we should be allowed to have the mentor, in my opinion. And this is coming from a kid who grew up in Detroit in the heart of the automotive industry, and part of it is because I was at the Detroit Auto Show. All I saw was trucks, man, like huge trucks, drinking gas. And so at least in this moment, if I take a snapshot, it doesn't seem like the U.S. legacies are learning any lesson. Now, Ford is talking out of both sides of its mouth because at CES, Doug Field's talking about a UEV, a clean energy vehicle that's using AI and, bringing everything into house, hardware, software design. But I don't know if they can balance that. Something's going to win over the other. And to me, F-150 makes 70, 80% of their profits, I think. That points to gas guzzlers still winning over the next several years. And I don't want to say I told you so, but I'm going to say I told you so. That countdown clock is ticking. And it just got louder with Canada's announcement.
Yeah, look at the North American car, truck, and utility of the year. It's the Dodge Charger, it's the Ford Maverick. And awesome. I like actually Hyundai has been keep winning these awards with the Palisade, right? Because Americans love those kind of vehicles. Yeah, I mean, and then the other ones, okay, so who comes in? Is it the BYDs? Is it the Neos? Is it the Xpengs? Is it Li Autos?
Well, let me ask you this, Lay. Let me ask you this. Who historically has had the longest relationship from a Chinese OEM, state-owned, it doesn't matter, state-owned, whatever. Who has had the longest relationship with Canada that you can think of
Well,
who has any type of business operations or any type of relationship.
automakers none, right? Magna is a Canadian supplier. And I think they actually probably were visiting this company, this delegation, because Magna produces with the joint venture ArcFox. And then they also produce the Xpeng and GAC ions in Austria. I don't know what that plays in terms of the OEMs, but no, but
Well,
there's no.
okay. Then let's break this down and look at this a different way. The companies that have international operations that could stand up something in Canada pretty quickly are Chery, BYD, because they already ship to many countries. So if we talk about NIO, we talk about XPeng, we talk about Li Auto, those types of companies, it would be a bit more heavy lifting for them.
Yeah.
Now, they probably have individual staff in Canada already, but to create a distribution network, to create a sales network, to create a service network, let's just say BYD and Chery probably have a playbook that they can refer back to, and then we can't leave out Geely. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
my guess would be Geely, Chery, BYD would be the first set. And again, it's only 50,000 cars, so there's going to be sharp elbows.
Yeah, I'd agree. Those three companies you mentioned, in terms of readiness, in terms of preparation, in terms of the intent, right? The last 20 years. Chery actually, for a while, was working with Malcolm Brooklyn, if you remember, to try to bring their vehicles. This was in the mid to late 2000s, right? Early 2010s.
And we can't forget about Great Wall either.
Yeah, I mean, Great Wall Motor, sure.
Because they have the vehicles that I think Canadians who have similar tastes to Americans, the SUV, boxy SUVs and stuff like that. So
yeah, definitely those that have surrounded U.S. or Americas, BYD being one, Chery being one. Geely, right? Geely, I think they're more than prepared than anybody with their presence. Aside from the robotaxi distance with Waymo.
And honestly, if I were, because let's make a couple assumptions. But Toronto and Vancouver would hoover a good portion of those 49,000 units up. Two of the largest cities in Canada. A lot of the other large cities are in like Montreal and things like that. They're going to be a lot colder, where BEVs probably aren't going to be as effective. So maybe we see a set of PHEVs coming in first, and then mostly going to Vancouver and Toronto.
You know when China joined the WTO in 2001, there was a saying at the time that the foreign automakers would come in, and the saying was, "The wolf is coming." I feel like this is at this point in time the same thing, but it's happening the other way. But at the same time, I think the worry that the Chinese are just going to come in and disrupt and take over, I think that's overblown, because you need probably years, if not decades, to build what, let's say, a Hyundai and Kia has built in terms of being a really an American feel-like brand rather than a Korean brand, right? So I think it's only starting. There's always somewhere to begin. The volumes are still small, but I think it'll take some time to really say, "Oh, the Chinese are here. We're done." I don't think it's that easy. Also, I think it won't be wishful thinking on the Chinese side that they're just come in and we're going to take over the rest of the world. Right?
I don't know. We should ask Stella Lee that. We should ask Stella Lee that. I think she'd probably.
I think she'll be,
behind closed. She'd be diplomatic, but behind closed doors, I think she would think,
sure,
we're going to kill in the United States. I'm gonna actually, counter your just statement now, because a couple of things are a lot different. The world is much more digital, much more software based. Young people can't afford cars. So if a BYD, a Chery with JQ, a Geely were to come in and own that $40,000 price point EV, PHEV, that's a real opportunity, because the price of vehicles has gotten to the point where it it takes a good portion of your check every month to pay it. And so in a digital world, the Chinese know how to play in the speed game. And you and I know that the product at least needs some massaging, but not like the Daewoo Le Mans that Pontiac turned into a Pontiac Le Mans 35 years ago, where it was just not ready for the US market. You know, these Chinese are selling these vehicles and they're popular in other markets, so they could plop them over here. Now, the biggest thing is if those restrictions were enforced by the Trump administration, how long would it take to qualify replacement components, replacement software? If there even is a Western equivalent to the Chinese supplier that currently supplies that to them in China. And so I think a lot of that gap analysis to where, okay, Lei supplies me with, you know, a modem, right? And is there a Western supplier that has the same spec at the same price? So it's this intersection between, is it close to the same price and does it perform the same? That's the impossible intersection, I think, for the Western suppliers to meet. And so that's where MSRP would be adjusted and things like that. But again, if they go to the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 price point, they would compete. But this would be more along the lines of what you're saying, a little bit slower, a little bit longer to build that trust. But in the lower point, I think U.S. consumers, the TikTok people are ready to consume these vehicles.
I'm ready.
So
I'm not on a TikTok, but in that statement put out by the Prime Minister official website, it specifically said, I think 50% of those are going to be under 35,000 Canadian dollars. And really to bring these cost-effective, affordable EVs. I think that was one of the key points. And then to your point, yes, I think we talk about in China for China. The Chinese are going to face the same in Canada for Canada, in US for US issue. And I think it'll be a lot more difficult than what the foreign automakers are doing in China for China. Because do we have a supply base that are ready? Do we have the capabilities, the kind of the tech? That's why the tweak, right? You're not going to buy the exact same what's available on the Chinese market as you can buy in the Canadian or the US market. It's something maybe a toned down version. So that's something that takes time. I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, the other thing too that I think is really important, and this is more about market share than actual sales volume. GM and Ford, that's an easy market for them to sell into. You know, Canadian income is much closer to U.S. incomes than Mexico income is to the U.S. And GM and Ford take that market for granted. And so this is potentially disastrous because the Canadians don't have a horse in the race. They don't have a Canadian automaker that they want to support. That used to be the U.S. automakers because they provided jobs in Canada, in Oshawa, in these places. Now, why wouldn't they support Chinese more? And the U.S. market, by sheer market demand, if and when the Chinese do want to start building in Canada, you know, that limits the appeal of U.S. brands in Canada even more. So I think that's another thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind. So I just Googled, General Motors sold 300,000 cars in Canada of the 2 million, you know, in 2024. So they have 15% market share if my calculations are right. Mm-hmm. Again, 300,000, not a ton from a volume standpoint, but it's 15% of the market. If the Chinese come in at 3, 4, 5 years from now and those 49,000 get to 100,000, 300,000, 400,000, especially as they're building domestically, you know, that's another market that GM got bullied out of. So we need to figure this out from a border country standpoint, how we're going to work together. I don't care who the president is, who the administration is. we can't be isolated from our two neighbors this way.
But I think next 5 years is going to be starting with this announcement. On this side of the world, it's going to be very interesting, to say the least. The
It's
prospect of
just
Chinese building in the U.S.
And you and I are here for it. You and I are here for it. So, so let's do this. I know we started late, but I did want to bring up a couple of things. Oh, so actually, let's take a step back. We talked about Canada or China coming to Canada. You wanted to talk about it. Oh, year-end numbers. Let's go to year-end numbers for 24 or 25.
The official CAN numbers before almost 34.5 million auto sales, 7.09 million exported.
That includes commercial too, though.
Commercial,
right?
yeah.
34.
And then 16.5 million NEVs, including exports. That's more than the light vehicles sold in the U.S. last year. And then about 2.6 million NEVs exported. And now we have this Canadian announcement. This year, some of those imports are coming into Canada. The interesting thing is the forecast given for 2026 is a very toned down, very almost flat. So I think we're going into this period where if we have a market of 35 million vehicles every single year, it's phenomenal, right? We can't expect growth like, going up every year, but the structural components is what's going to change significantly, right? We have the prospects of these new millionaires that we talked about joining the BYDs, joining the Geelys, and possibly only a few foreign automakers could remain by the end of this decade in China. So only the strong will compete, and at the same time, export is going to continue to drive. But we're seeing that actually CAM gave a toned down export growth to only 7.4 million. Interestingly enough, so things are slowing down a bit. As we talk about this, the price war is alive and well in China. We're in the fourth year, right? 23, 4, 5.
Well,
fourth year
the
of the price.
Model Y, the decontented Model Y is going to launch in China. So
yeah, the Xiaomi, I just saw
still
this,
up to their old tricks.
The Toyota BZ3 EV is now under 100,000 RMB for a limited time, and following the BMW's huge price cuts. I think there's going to be a lot of shakeups this year, especially the rankings that are kind of posted of who's going to, how does Tesla maintain their kind of resiliency, if at all, through the cheaper Model Y, financing incentives, and others are pushing the pedal, right?
Let me drill down a little bit further. As growth is kind of flattening out, okay, we should still see a little bit of growth. 2030, I think it might be, get to 30 million units, 30 million units on the light passenger vehicle side. The one thing that's important is that as the market matures, growth slows, customer acquisition costs increase significantly because now I'm not growing my pie with the market. If I want to grow my pie, grow my market share, if I'm BYD or if I'm Chery, if I'm Geely, I need to take it from Ley Motor Company. And so we should take a picture at the end of this or at the end of last year, Ley, and maybe what we do is we just look at a simple statistic. What's the market share percentage of BYD at the end of 25? What's the market share percentage of Geely at the end of 25? Because that's going to be an indicator of probably how much people or how much OEMs are paying for customer acquisition, whether or not any players have left the market that have significant volume. Because if Geely gains 400,000 units, did they pay more for those customers, number one, or did one or two companies leave the market and Geely took advantage of that and took them away from a BYD, or, they're fighting for those extra customers. And so the balance sheet should look a little bit different because one of the things that the OEMs can hide during a growing market, is whether or not they're growing more or faster than the market. In a mature market, you either you're protecting market share as opposed to trying to grow that market share.
The interesting thing is we've seen some officially announced targets for 26. So Geely is looking at 3.5 million, including everything. BYD, they're kind of saying 5 to 5.5 million. And then you have the kind of the Xpengs wanting to grow to 600,000. Leapmotor, 1 million. Huawei HEMA Alliance, 1 million. Even some of these state-owned automakers, they want to grow on top of 2025.
So
I don't think everybody grows.
Yeah, this lumps them into the traditional kind of mindset, right? Where it's like, well, I take that back because Mercedes and BMW, I think it was an article from our good friend Chery on Car News China. He said that BMW and Mercedes are looking at around 500,000 units. Okay. And I actually posted it in my newsletter, and you can talk a little bit about this in more detail.
Yeah.
In 2021, BMW had their best year ever at close to 850,000 units, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And Mercedes in 2022 had 770 or something like that. So we're talking over the course of 5 years, a loss of 20 and 30% of sales. And they sell less than 3 million units each globally. And so China is a disproportionate amount of their sales volume, but also a disproportionate amount of their global profit margin. Okay. So maybe, you want to add anything to that?
Mercedes down 19%, BMW Group down 12.5%. Audi doing slightly better. I think they were only down 5%, but the volumes are certainly dropping down into the 500s, which means a host of these other even startups are going to lap them this year. And the early indications of, let's say, I think you posted this, let's say something like Audi EUDI, 4-letter Audi E5 Sportback, I think only sold 6,500 units, 7,000 units since they launched in September. The CLA has been on the market. We don't know the numbers yet. But,
they're not good.
I was told that BMW is launching the locally produced long wheelbase version of the iX3 this year.
Oh, they have mule versions of the Neue Klasse out of the Shenyang factory.
Yeah. So huge year, Volkswagen, right? The ID Era 9X, I think, is gonna be one of the models that will define the Volkswagen brand in this year, how well that one does, because I can't imagine that model pricing. It's a huge vehicle, but I can't imagine it priced above 300,000 RMB.
Not with the Geely Galaxy.
Yeah, it has to be in the 200,000 range to even have a chance. Even though
that's for those folks that are wondering what the FX is, that's about $30,000 US.
Yeah. It's their first E-Rev. It's a lead kind of L9 sized, I would say, SUV. And at the same time, right, the Volkswagen brand in 2025 in China they just got above 2 million units. It's been going down the last few years and in danger of falling below 2 million units.
But let's peel the layer of the onion back on those Germans, the BB, okay? Because there was a spreadsheet that was posted in one of my WeChat groups. I think you might be in the same WeChat group, that basically said that, and I'm connecting dots. BMW is forecasting around 500,000 unit sales. That's what they're communicating to suppliers, okay? And in order for them to get to that 500,000, they have reduced price on 24 vehicles on average. So I did an average by 14%. So not 2%, not 3%. One of the vehicles is reduced by 24%.
300,000 RMB, I think.
So this hammers home your point about the Volkswagen ID9 having to be less than 300,000 RMB, probably closer to 250. And so if this becomes the normal for the German automakers, and especially the premium automakers, they're going to have to learn how to do business and operate differently, because the margins disguise their inefficiency. Okay. But if they're getting squeezed, and again, we're talking MSRP. We're not talking an incentive that gives you 20% off. We're saying this is the new price. Okay. So it's a correction because the Chinese competitors are that much lower and add and offer that many more features. Okay. So this gets them to the starting line because they don't have better products, not as a whole. And I think that's really, really significant. I mean, 14%, Lay. I mean, goodness, my goodness. And the other thing too, and you can talk to this more than me, 3 Series, 5 Series, C-Class, E-Class, mostly built locally in China. It's the 7 Series, it's the S-Class, GLS. Those are all exported from Germany, and that's where a lot of the margin is. That's where they pad their profits. And I posted the Maestro, the ET9, all these companies, the HEMA, they're all eating into that 7 Series kind of flagship halo vehicle for the Germans.
Yeah, the need to balance or sacrifice profit for volume or the other way around, as in Porsche's case, there's never been as critical as this year, I believe, because it's psychologically falling into the, even possibly below 500,000 units. It's quite jarring. And Porsche, right? Less than, there's almost just over 40,000 units sold in China, less than half of what they did just a few years ago.
That's the amazing thing.
Reckoning. It's a reckoning, really.
If you graph that, the last 5 or 6 years, just the Germans individually, the sales, the steepness of that decline is unreal, unbelievable. I don't think I wouldn't have even anticipated they'd lose that much. If you asked me in 21 or 22, I'd have been like, yeah, they're going to get killed. But I would have not believed that they go below, 50,000 units or 40,000, 45,000 units for Porsche and BMW and Mercedes. I know they are trying, so let me qualify this, but it feels like they're not even trying. Yeah. Because sales have retreated so dramatically.
Yeah.
Let's do this, Lei. We have a couple surprises. Lei and I, as you know, will be in Beijing for the auto show. And I'm inspired by a few things, these few events that I've gone to recently. So Lei and I are looking at hosting a China EVs and More party. And we may even be building some hardware because we're going to be announcing some award winners. We've made a set of categories, and I'm going to paste it into the chat. And I'd love,
like I said, yeah. Oh, the company that needs a hug. I know which one I'm voting for.
So,
well, there's a lot of them.
So this is where you viewers and listeners, we would love for your input. Lei and I will put our heads together. We have 10 awards. First of all, we'd love your thoughts on any other awards we should create, number one. Number two, what is your winner for each of these awards? There's 10 categories. And for the people that are listening on the podcast, so the umbrella EV of the year, let's break that down into SUV, MPV, and luxury car of the year. Person or executive of the year. Who's the comeback kid?
Is there a
what
comeback?
Was the dark? Well, yeah, well, the comeback kid and dark horse is kind of similar, but maybe it's the dark horse that didn't do that well in 25 that you anticipate does well in 26.
Yeah, well,
we could break this flop of the year down by product and company.
I'm surprised we don't have a zombie award of the year.
Actually, I'm going to add that. So, then the last two are the Tech That Matters award and the Who Dis. Like, I already know who the Who Dis is, meaning like, where did this company come from and who is this company? And I'm going to actually do this. We want to make this fun. So feel free to post them in the comments. I'll try to get this turned around and then repost it on YouTube. But we want to amp up the engagement this year. You guys, especially, there's probably 30, 40 people that are very, very well, more than 30 or 40 people. But I know it's very difficult to get 9 a.m. Eastern time for the live show. But for those that are engaged, it would be fun just to get your opinions. And the idea would be potentially awarding them physical hardware at our China EVs More party in Beijing. We haven't figured it out yet. We're either thinking CBD 798 or Shunyi near the convention center. But and we're gonna have a small one. We're hoping that we can get some sponsors. Hopefully, one or two of the OEMs can be sponsors. And we want to turn this into the event you go to at the Beijing or Shanghai Auto Show. So between Lei and I think our networks are vast, global, and pretty significant. But there's going to be a no asshole rule. Because I'm the asshole. There can't be more than one asshole at the party, and that'll be me. But I'm just joking. We want it to be fun and a celebration. So look out for more details on that. For those that are actually coming to Beijing, look out for the dates. So
there's only 3 months left, basically. So very scary.
Man, it's crazy. Freaking crazy. It's like it's mid-January, man. Holy cow. The world has changed with that announcement. The combination of Geely, 24 to 36 months, Canada, yes, we're reducing tariffs to 6%. And, the head scratcher, like, why 6? Is that like sales tax? Why 6? I don't know.
Kind of like sales tax, yeah.
I'm going to ask my Canadian friends real quick, why 6? But and here's the thing, the other thing, because and we can get to questions and comments because I'm pretty much done. You have anything else, Lei? Or?
Yeah, we're good.
Hold on, let me really quickly look at what I wrote about. Tesla moved to subscrition from one-time cost.
Yeah. I mean does
that make you less want to lease buy a Tesla or
no,
more?
It doesn't.
Or it doesn't matter.
I think for me, if I look at myself trading in and still having to pay significantly higher than what I'm paying now with FSD, it's kind of turning off a bit.
Yeah.
And that's why I see this, right? The affordability. When do we get there?
Well, at least in the United States, you mean, right? So,
yeah.
One thing that I did also want to mention really quickly are the benchmark mineral numbers. And I think they say EV, so let's assume that those are BEVs. The total for 2025, 20.7 million vehicles. China was at, like you said, around 13 million, right? So,
well, yeah, with the domestic, yeah.
差不多.
Yeah.
And then the EU was at 4.3. So together, those two were 3/4 of total sales. And the EU increased by 33%. US was actually up 1%, so it was flat. North America was down, so that means Canada bought less EVs. That should not be the case next year or this year as the Chinese automakers are coming in. And then global share, as I read that total sales for vehicles in the world in 2025 is around 90 million. And I'm assuming that's including commercial, but global share is around 23%. With the EU and obviously China leading the way. But China is going to be, I think, less significant this year just because, like you said, the market's maturing and it's going to flatten out a little bit from a growth curve standpoint. So what we can glean from this, Lei, is that price war in China might dial down, but the brutality of the competitiveness will not because the pie is not growing. Okay. And the international intrigue has been dialed up significantly by our neighbors to the north, Canada. I think that'll be very interesting. And everything's going to happen. Responses, chess moves in the first quarter and a half of this year. So keep an eye on this because maybe you and I will continue to make some predictions. So
this year, this Canadian announcement is huge. A couple of other huge developments that we may witness in 26 is the EU's discussion on minimum pricing. There's been some positive development. Official U.S. stance of allowing, really let them come in, right? Is there an announcement on that front? At the end of the day, I think China becoming like Japan, like Germany, like Korea, their exports or them, the Chinese automakers building elsewhere in the world. Why should that be a problem? Or why should that be, everybody else has done it. Should it be natural? Right? We kind of ponder this. Because there's domestic market. How large is the domestic market when you have a per thousand vehicle ownership per thousand people that are still significantly lower than the developed markets? But I could be wrong, but I don't think China gets to where the U.S. is, 800, 900 vehicles per thousand.
No. I don't
right?
think so either.
So you think about that, and then where export comes into play to fill that void. So the share of the NEVs are going to grow, the share of export are going to grow. I think that's structurally should be what's happening.
And then the
and
one thing
export,
that I think
one more point, export not only from the Chinese automakers. I think 2025, if you saw some of the press releases, Volkswagen, they actually mentioned that they're Shanghai Volkswagen exporting vehicles. Yet Kia,
Ford, GM.
Kia export more than half of their sales from China.
Lei, I wouldn't be surprised if Lexus exports from the Shanghai factory into Japan.
Yeah, right. Lexus, they're building the Wolfie in Shanghai.
Right, because here's the thing, to kind of put a bow on it, the global market for passenger vehicles isn't really global until China starts building. A lot of brands from China start building outside of China, and it complicates things in the short term, but there's this inevitability to it. You and I have known about this inevitability for years. The other thing that I think, because I'm always also looking out longer term, is it could be a 15-year thing because EVs will be commoditized, like the manufacture of EVs. There's going to be so many robots, there's going to be tools, AI tools that make it super simple. There's already less parts to complicate things. And so, we think about this, maybe the smart part is still installed and assembled locally, like how currently Ojai is kind of a dumb robo-van, gets shipped to the United States. Waymo adds its bits and pieces, software and hardware, and it becomes their robo-van, their Waymo robo-van. Because I really do feel that the manufacturing part is very, very important, but it becomes less so over the next 12, 15 years. And for the automakers, at least, their balance sheets start to reflect that. If not, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. So anyways, let's go to questions real quick, Lei, or comments. SPX, always a loyal viewer. Thank you, sir or ma'am. Happy Friday, guys. I think it's a guy. As China EV Inc. Looking to build factory and union workers in the U.S., what advantages do they have over the existing players?
That's your expertise.
Well, so first of all, their speed, okay, and they bring a different level of focus and speed. And if we're talking union workers, we can talk about the efficiency that they'll create. I think the same thing was said. Our good friend Joe White, he wrote a book about it, basically saying people were skeptical about Toyota being able to make a profit in the building, or the Japanese, but they have. They're much more efficient. They're a well-run company, and I think the Chinese will find a way to eke out profits, because if we think about it, the competitiveness is not as intense as in in China, number one. Number two, everybody comes here to make money, okay? And that's across sectors. The United States is normally the profit maker for a lot of the companies. And so all else being equal, SPX, if the Chinese automakers have better products, they win.
Good.
Oh yeah. Hey, thanks, Felix. So I got in there. I sat down with Kyle Chan, who does the high capacity. And he, of course, Felix empathizes because he has a friend that owns a Hyundai too. Thanks, Felix. Scott Wilson, if Chinese EVs are homologated for Canada, will they automatically be homologated for the US? Can Americans buy them, drive them? So, no. They have different requirements, number one. Number two, technically, if you buy it in Canada and own it in the United States, I actually think you might be prohibited from the over-the-air updates. So
but you can certainly, the least you could do, you can certainly drive these Chinese EVs with Canadian plates into the US. I wouldn't imagine
unless Michigan or whatever states that have borders with Canada decide that they can't do that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because I could see a scenario where some of the hardliners in Michigan say, no, you can't drive them over here. Yeah. Like a very, very extreme subset of because they do that in California right now. They drive people in San Diego tell me they see BYDs all day long. So
yeah.
So So Mike the Car Geek says Canada market vehicle cannot be imported if it has not been certified approved for sale in the U.S. They can't be registered for U.S. plates. They can't do that. Once the vehicle is 25 years old, then you can. So there are some 90s K cars. So basically, it's like if the car is old enough, then it's what's the right word? Then it doesn't need to fill those requirements.
When they become classics.
Yes, that's basically what they're joking about. Hey, vintage EVs. So that's what we should do, Lei. We should figure out what are the collectible EVs, and then maybe buy a few of them and have them stored in China for a few years. So here you go, man. Always appreciate your insights, and Lei is right. I identify with him. Yeah, I knew you were a man. Sorry, I just don't want to be presumptuous. Anyways, everyone, thanks for joining us as always. This was a really interesting one. I think I'm going to try to get some little short marks.
It's always interesting when breaking news come out right before our show. So we
will we'll see y'all next week at the same time. Good morning, Good afternoon, good evening. That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lee, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China EVs and more.